What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today I'm back with another crazy Reddit story. This one, I'm going to be honest, is pretty tragic. However, we have some good news first, and that's thanks to you guys. This channel has hit 5,000 subscribers, which is amazing. Loads of you have come over from the main channel in the past few days and weeks. This is the third sort of video that I've made on here with the new rebrand, telling you guys about the new channel and the shorter stories on here, and you guys seem to be absolutely loving it, so thank you very much. If you are new around here and you don't want to miss a video in the future, as I said, there are 2 already on the channel. Subscribe, join the 5,000 of you that already have done, and turn notifications on so you don't miss one of these new videos on this new channel. Now, to briefly explain what is going to happen in this one, this is just one story today with a very sad theme involving the passing of an unborn baby. However, before we get into that exact post, what I'd normally call the original post, and there is a short update to come after that too, I'm first of all going to read 2 stories from years before, posted by the same user, about their family and their dad in particular, which will give more context and explain why OP and her dad have such a bad relationship and how that's progressed over the years. Okay, so this first post offers a bit of background. It was posted on November the 5th, 2023 with the title, "Am I the jerk for not allowing my dad to see his grandchild for Christmas? Hello, here is my current dilemma. I am a 30-year-old woman, and my dad, who is 57, invited me for Christmas this year. Now, usually this hasn't been a problem for us to attend, since he only lived an hour away. But he just bought a new house, which is 3 hours away by car, which turns out to be a bit of an issue for us for the following reasons. We have a 15-month-old son, and the last time we visited my dad for a day trip, my son was inconsolable the entire way, just wanting to get out of his car seat. This means another 6 hours to look forward to, driving back and forward to my dad's house, and just thinking about that makes me stressed out for my son. We do not have a car. We live in a city that doesn't require it, and we bike and take public transport. This means we will have to rent a car to get there, which is incredibly expensive in our country. We do not have a travel bed for my son, who still needs to sleep in a crib for safety reasons. My dad doesn't have a crib in his house. This means we need to go out and buy a crib just to use that one time in my dad's house. So, as a solution, I offered that we could celebrate Christmas at our place. But my dad, who has a car and no small children, refuses without giving any reasons. I've told my dad that for my son's sake and for our sanity's sake, we cannot attend Christmas in his house this year. But that's left him very upset, claiming that I'm keeping his grandchild from him and that family should stay together at Christmas. Just for info, in my country, Christmas and opening presents is in the evening, which is why we'd have to stay the night. OP then asks if they are the jerk here or not. You can probably guess what subreddit this was originally posted to. Right, now let's get into the second background post. This was posted 3.5 months later on February the 27th, 2024. Titled, "Am I the jerk for not forgiving my parents' reaction to me being SA'd as a child?" Remember guys, these are just background posts before we get into the actual story, but as you can sort of tell, they're giving important information and context to this one, and especially the relationship between OP and her parents. OP says, "When I was 6 to 11 years old, I was SA'd by my maternal grandfather. I never told my parents while it was going on, since I simply didn't understand what was going on and I didn't know it was wrong. It was never intercourse, but a lot of inappropriate touching, mostly him telling me to touch his private parts. At least, that's what I remember. It all stopped when my grandfather died when I was 11. I kept what happened a secret from my family for a long time. I think it was a mix of shame and fear that kept me from saying the truth. But when I turned 16, I finally gathered up the courage and I told them. I told my mum first, as she was always the one I could talk to about sensitive subjects. But to my shock and dismay, her first reaction was disbelief. She simply could not understand how her dad, who was a well-loved figure in our family, could do such a thing. He never abused me, she said. She also told me she would talk to my dad about it, so I assumed she did. Fast forward 3 weeks later. I bring up what happened in a conversation with my dad, and he's immediately shocked. It turns out mum never told him. This progresses into a fight between my parents, and after that day, it was never spoken of again. My mum later passed away from cancer. I brought that whole situation up with my dad the other day. I told him that I was disappointed in them as parents and how I felt as if they failed me. I told him that if this was my child, I would at least have talked to them and most likely gotten a therapist involved. My dad told me that I never expressed a need for a therapist, so he didn't know that I needed one. And I told him that I was a child and had no idea what I needed and that my parents should have guided me. So, am I the jerk for being angry at my parents even though I did not express a need for help? Okay, so that is it for the 2 background posts. Now let's get into the original post, the main point of this episode. But yeah, hopefully those background posts have given us the context we need to really understand what I'm about to narrate. So this post, titled, "I told my dad to never speak to me again the day my son died," was posted just 9 days ago at the time of recording on the 18th of August on r/true off my chest. My son, 32 weeks into my pregnancy, passed away very recently. We knew it was going to happen, so we invited our closest family to say goodbye to him at the hospital. I've always had a very difficult relationship with my dad, but I decided that this was an important thing for him to be a part of. I also needed someone who could take care of our 3-year-old son at home while we were at the hospital and I was giving birth to our stillborn son. He calls me the day before he arrives, asking when I expect to give birth. I tell him that I do not know exactly, since the birth is induced and it can take anywhere between hours to days for my body to react to the medication. He responds, "Well, I need to let my work know how long I'll be away, so I need a better time frame than that." I repeat myself, as I literally do not know when I'll go into labour, but he keeps pressing me for a more precise answer, with quotes like, "The hospital must know, just ask a doctor, they'll know," etc. In the end, my husband has to grab the phone and tell my dad to figure it out with his work. What a lovely dad you have. Going through a truly horrible process, but all he cares about is when exactly it's going to happen and when he needs to get the time off of work. What a lovely man. I think this is why the background was important here, because now we know about their relationship, right? Anyway, my dad then arrives with his girlfriend and is, throughout the entire day, extremely visibly distraught. I think to myself, wow, he really cares, and I feel incredibly bad for him. But I also notice some strange behaviour from him. Throughout the 3 hours he was there, he just places himself in a corner in a complete zombie state. He doesn't once console me or my husband. He doesn't once take the initiative to go for a walk with our 3-year-old son or talk to him. He just sits there without a single word, and I have to handle my son while I'm also trying to arrange paperwork with the hospital about my stillborn baby. The only thing my dad tells me that day is, quote, "You should probably go home. Your 3-year-old is very confused and he needs you." At this point, I'd just given birth to my son 3 hours prior, and prior to that been hospitalized for bleeding. My dad then ends up walking out of the room and taking the elevator down. My husband, being a bit worried about him, follows and asks him what is going on. My dad then looks at him and says, "My girlfriend and I broke up." My husband doesn't react much with other than telling him he's sorry. My husband also decides to keep this from me for the time being because I'm dealing with enough grief at that point. Later in the day, we all return home. My dad, still sitting motionless on the couch, is staring into the room. His girlfriend gets up to use the bathroom, and he then turns to me with tears in his eyes and drops the bomb on me as well. We broke up, but I don't want to talk about it right now. Clearly, he was trying to keep this announcement a secret from his now ex, since he waited until she left the room to tell me. In that moment, I can't take it anymore. I glare at him and I tell him, "I cannot handle this right now and I think you need to leave. Don't contact me." I needed my dad that day. My mum passed away some time ago and my husband's parents live halfway across the world. I needed my dad more than I'd ever needed him. And instead of embracing me, telling me he loves me, telling me he loves our son, comforting me, he's lost in his own grief over his frickin' breakup. I don't even know if a single tear that day was shed for my son. At the same time, I can't help but feel bad for him, but couldn't he have waited a couple of days to tell me about this? Why did I need to know it on that day? Yeah, I'm probably just a jerk, I don't really know, but I needed to vent this out. Now, as I mentioned in the introduction, there is an update to this one, but first of all, let's get into some comments. Somebody said, "I'm so sorry for everything that you, your husband, and your 3-year-old son are going through. You just needed your dad to be your dad. How is your other son doing? OP replied, he is being a 3-year-old and is being such a brave and amazing little boy. I adore him 1,000 times more than I ever have, and I'm showering him with love. He's no doubt affected by it, but I hope we can heal together as a family and I can give him space to grieve in his own way. Somebody else asked, has your dad always been like this? Between how he behaved on the phone and how he behaved at the hospital, your dad strikes me as a very selfish person. I think that you were well within your rights to tell your dad to leave and to not contact you. I'm sorry for your loss. Yeah, well, we know because we've seen the background post, but OP says anyway, we have a very, very strained relationship. When I lost my mum as a teenager, he also engulfed himself in grief and forgot to care for his 4 kids. I had to arrange my mum's funeral because he couldn't handle it. He never once asked how his kids were doing, never once checked in on us. Oh wow, I mean, that is horrible, and part of me does feel terrible for him, but also you can't leave your kids to organise their own mother's funeral when they're teenagers. Someone else said, you need to ask yourself why your husband wasn't able to tackle the administrative tasks of form filing and childminding. I imagine that if your husband was in the middle of a health crisis, that you wouldn't hand him a clipboard and a 2-year-old. I suppose that is a fair question. OP responds saying, thank you, just to clear it up, in that moment my husband was talking to a photographer about how to arrange the photos of our son. He was in another room and didn't see them handing me the paperwork. Somebody else asked, so if they broke up, then why did they come to the hospital together? OP says, I asked myself the same question. Probably because the ex has a heart and wanted to be there for you in a small way. Yeah, maybe. OP responds saying, perhaps. She's genuinely a really sweet person and she's been there for my son more than my dad ever has, so it could be her wanting to be there and support us. And then OP said to another commenter, I can see your point. I'm not quite sure when they broke up in the process, but it must have been relatively close to my son's passing. I don't know what happened between them. My dad has some anger issues and some extreme outbursts, and perhaps she had enough and had to step out despite the tragic circumstances. I've gotten to know her quite well over the years, and although I can't claim to know her to the core, I'd be extremely surprised if she decided to break up with him during this time if it wasn't highly necessary. I hope to talk to her one of these days to understand what happened. I do have sympathy for the double whammy my dad was hit with. However, if my child ever went through something like this, I can guarantee that the world could be falling apart, and that wouldn't stop me from being there to hug and hold my own child. Whether she broke up with him close to the event or not, I do blame my dad for not being capable of sitting aside his own trash for 3 hours just to be there and be present. Okay then, and let's finally get into the update posted the very next day. My dad called today 4 times. I didn't want to talk to him, so I asked my husband if he could. I was genuinely afraid that something had happened. My dad used 30 seconds on asking how we are. The conversation then immediately turned into him complaining about his now ex. When he started telling my husband about how he's already signed up for a dating site because, quote, now I need to find a new girlfriend, he hung up. My dad called my grandmother and complained about how difficult I was being during his visit at the hospital because I didn't ask why he was so sad. I've blocked him on every possible contact and I will never let him near my family again. Okay, so there we go. That is the end of that one. Incredibly sad story. Again, this happened or was posted just 1 week ago. So yeah, thoughts and prayers are with OP and her immediate family. Well, her husband and their child. Not obviously with her dad going through such a terrible experience. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about hearing some other posts from any person that does post one of these stories or events that have happened to them on Reddit, which do provide more context, because, you know, I feel like without those 2 background posts, we wouldn't have got the whole picture in terms of how horrific OP's dad has been for probably quite a long time, going back obviously to that essay that she experienced at such an early age, which was just discounted by her mum and dad. Just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, don't get me wrong, it must be pretty weird and just, yeah, horrific to hear that your dad has essayed your daughter, but surely you don't react like OP's mum and dad did there. I mean, it's insane. Yeah, your dad is just a genuinely terrible person. What is going on? The top comment actually on this whole post says, her father has the IQ of a turnip. What a thoughtless creature. And I could not sum it up better myself. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this one. Really hope you enjoyed listening and watching to it. If you are new to this channel, then I'll put the previous 2 episodes on screen here and here. Go and check them out if you haven't done already. And make sure to subscribe if you are new. I'll catch you very soon with another one.